Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to take a deep dive look into the Mandalorian Season 3 episode titled The Foundling. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is now live on Patreon. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost conversations. All right, everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And I'm really thrilled to get into this incredible episode of The Mandalorian and what it does for building out the world of that universe, as well as answering some great questions that we've had from the start of the series. And just frankly, the Return of the King. I'll get to that all later in our main segment of the episode, but I'm just really thrilled that this episode exists and what it means for the Star Wars family and the community. Just it's all great stuff, and I'm really thrilled that it all exists. So can't wait for that discussion on the other side of our discussion here in this segment, which is of course Cloud City Gossip. And really the only big Star Wars news thing that was confirmed this week, confirmed. A lot of rumors out there circulating in the Star Wars Lucasfilm galaxy around these days. So I'm not going to cover any of that stuff until it's officially confirmed by Lucasfilm or a very reputable source such as Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, etc. So all that stuff is conjecture at this point to me until it's confirmed by the big studio. I'm not going to comment on it in this point personally. But in our Cloud City Gossip segment this week, we do have a brand new trailer for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Yes, the highly anticipated sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And of course, the game comes out at the end of April, and we got an official story trailer this past week. And I actually haven't seen the trailer yet. I have no idea what the trailer has to say for itself, what's about it. I've avoided all spoilers somehow when it comes to this uh, trailer. So you're gonna get probably the freshest viewing of a live reaction from me during one of these segments ever, which is pretty cool, I think. So if you want to watch along, be sure to pull up YouTube or some other video platform site, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Just search it. Um, and what I've got is the EA Star Wars YouTube page right now up with their version of the trailer. And I'm gonna watch along here just a few seconds here. And if you want, pull it up alongside, or you can just hear me ranting and raving as I go through and just literally live react to this for you all here. So this has been fun. I love doing these kind of things, and it's just a great way to engage with something that is really cool and coming out very soon here. So again, if you want to follow along, now's your time to do so. However, I'm going to start playing in 3, 2, 1, hitting play. Okay, so it's 5 years since Fallen Order, confirmed. There's the Mantis. Oh, it looks like Coruscant. Oh boy, are we going to Coruscant? Of course, there's some Purge soldiers. Hmm. Oh my goodness. What's that creature? That's a new creature. I don't think I've seen that one before. Crossguard lightsaber? Wow. Marin. Marin's back. Definitely Coruscant. Grease. Wow. Star Wars becomes Blade Runner 2049, am I right? Oh, man. Ooh, ooh. Who's that? Who are these people? Where can the Empire not reach them? I don't know, is it where the Zepho are? It's definitely not Coruscant. A place that's worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Sounds perfect. Sign me up, let's go there. Wow. I mean, April 28th, baby. Let's go. This game looks great. I'm very excited. Make sure you get your pre-orders in now, because you don't wanna miss out on any of this gameplay. You want it to download immediately to your console right away. Yikes, yeah, that was a really great trailer. I still don't know a whole lot about the story, to be honest. It sounds like a search for a new home, a place safe from the Empire. Who knows where that is? Where it'd be unknown regions, someplace where the Zepho are, etc. I mean, this all ties in together here. But wow, did the gameplay that really struck me overall? Like the beauty of how the engine of the world works. Like that just was absolutely astonishing to me. That's the big standout that I have from that whole thing. And of course, Cal looks great. All the characters are back and ready to rock and roll. Don't really have a sense of who a villain is for this series yet, or at least aside from the Empire. Um, but that it seemed like maybe that other perhaps Jedi that was saying about the Empire. How can they let the Jedi fall to an Empire like this or something like that? Perhaps that could be some type of antagonist source there. Maybe that's the person that's been living on this world and beyond the reach of the Empire. I don't know. This is going to be a fascinating game. I'm very much looking forward to playing it when it comes out. And of course, we will cover all that here on Force Ghost Conversations. Maybe I'll do some live gameplay, play alongs or something like that. I know I got good feedback about that when I did that for the Lego Star Wars game that came out earlier, or not even earlier this year, it came out last year, I think. Oh my gosh. Um, but yeah, that's great. That's great. Make sure you get your pre-orders in now. April 28th is coming faster than you could think. And of course, once Celebration hits, we're going to be full steam ahead towards that great game. So that is all that I had for Cloud City Gossip this week, folks. On the other side of this short break, we're back with The Mandalorian Chapter 20, The Foundling. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. And it's time for the main event, the main segment. Yes, the big part of our episode, where, of course, we do a deep dive discussion into all aspects of The Mandalorian and, of course, Chapter 20, The Foundling, more specifically. This is an incredible episode, and I'm just going to get into it right away here. Make sure if you haven't watched the episode yet that you pause this podcast now, go watch it on Disney Plus, then come right back to this point in time because frankly, you've been warned for spoilers, so don't come tweeting at me, don't come yelling at me, Anthony. What are you doing here? I am fully forewarning you about this conversation that's going to be taking place here. And I guess gotta start right at the top here. It is the Return of the King. That's what I labeled this like top portion that I wanted to discuss here. Ahmad Best is back in Star Wars, and in perhaps one of the best ways possible, if you ask me. I love Jar Jar Binks. That's on the record now. I loved it. I loved that character when he came out. I've loved every day since. That character has meant a lot to me in my childhood and my upbringing as a prequel fan, as someone who has enjoyed the Star Wars universe, as someone who has appreciated the behind the scenes work of Star Wars. Ahmad Best is integral to the foundation of Star Wars that I grew up with and that I was forged upon. Especially, exactly what this episode talked about, right? We forged ourselves, and those prequels forged me. And Ahmad Best again is at the center of that. He is, of course, the motion capture actor for Jar Jar Binks. And if he's provided the voice for the character in a couple Clone Wars episodes, etc. But of course, you may know he's had a troubled history with Star Wars, with toxic fandom, with people aggressively hating on him just for existing, just for portraying a fun kids character in a kids soap opera adventure series. It's okay not to like a character, but to go against aggressively someone for just doing their job, portraying a character role, that's not cool, everybody. And of course, that drove him to almost the point of terrible things, suicide, right? And now that he's so much in a healthy, better place with all this, that we can get to him at this point here. Of course, I know that Celebration 2019 in Chicago was a great turning point with the 20th anniversary of not Attack of Clones, but the Phantom Menace, where he was able to get that standing ovation on stage and to really just celebrate amongst a group of great fans all that is that Jar Jar and what Jar Jar brought to the world, and how much that character is actually really beloved by people, and it's not just a vocal minority spouting hate online. That was a great moment. Of course, that led to the creation of Kelleran Beck for Jedi Temple Challenge. The TV series, if you will, was supposed to be on Disney Plus, and they shifted it to YouTube, where he took he was the host of the show, and it was meant to get kids to engage in some physical activities with each other. They were in groups of two, and then three groups competed in an episode, and they had to go through these various challenges that a Jedi would have to face, quote unquote, in order to win the temple challenge, right? To train younglings, right? That was really his purpose at that point in time, at least in terms of story. Keller and Beck is the Jedi that they created um, for that TV show that he was Ahmad Best portrayed in that. And if you want to go watch those episodes, they're really great. They're on um, YouTube still. Just search up Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge, and you'll find them. They're great. I think there's about 10 or so. Really well done. Good production on all that. Nice set design. I think it's a really fun show, and it came out during the pandemic too. So that was an interesting time where we were looking for content to absorb, and frankly, for me, that was a great escape there during those early days of this endeavor. But yeah, then now they brought him into the live action realm of the Mandoverse, which absolutely makes sense to me. Again, like if you want to trust that the canon of Jedi Temple Challenge is accurate here, or at least parts of it were taken for what is on the Mandalorian now. There's a sense of responsibility for training of younglings and protection of them, and that's exactly what he does here. Kelleran Beck is the Jedi who gets Grogu out of the Jedi Temple during Order 66. Ahmed Best will be integrally tied to one of the most important characters in Star Wars history at this point in time, Grogu, and he is responsible for getting him to safety, for getting him to the Mandalorian. We don't have the Mandalorian if it is not for Kelleran Beck. That's amazing. And frankly, I've got more questions afterwards here than I did going into it, because now that they've built out this aspect of canon and the lore for how Grogu got to this point, now there's the question of, well, what happened next? What are the connections here to Naboo, if any, right? Because he lands on that platform where there's that Nubian uh, ship, and there's Naboo guards, basically, palace guards, right? I don't know if there's some type of contingency plan that they're doing if the temple were to be attacked or something like that, that they're enacting for the younglings. Maybe that's something that is great. Where do they go to? Do they go to Naboo? Do they go to some hidden off-world planet site? These are things that I hope get explored in future episodes of The Mandalorian, and I have no reason to doubt that they either will or will not. But that's really something that I wanted to point out here, is I just have a lot more questions now than I have necessarily answers in regards to this stuff. I'm glad that we have a full concrete answer to it. I think we knew we were getting it when we saw the Mandalorian season 3 trailers, where we saw that there were going to be flashbacks to Order 66, and now we have that full answer of what and who got him out of the temple, who protected him, who was that source of inspiration that helped him get to where he is now. And it's Keller and Beck. And I loved it. I absolutely was so thrilled about it. I will have a little bit of a gripe about the process where the internet was so happy with it that they couldn't contain themselves whatsoever. And boy, spoilers were abound on the internet on Wednesday. I mean, typically people usually are pretty good about keeping it to themselves and all that stuff. But even like the hint spoilers that people do where they're like, "Oh, I'm not actually spoiling it here, but without context, here's something," which I'm not a fan of, frankly, to begin with. Just don't tweet about it to begin with. Just say I like the episode if you really want to say something about it without getting into a spoiler territory. I'm a big fan of the 24-hour rule. At least give people a day. So like for example, myself, I work and then I have classes and grad school and assignments that I need to be doing. So I really don't get to watch an episode until about 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time. So, and I'm also not going to sacrifice my sleep schedule in order to get up at a early time. I already have to get up at 6 a.m. to um, do the rest of the day, and I'm in bed by 10. So it's like I'm not getting up early to watch the episode. I'll watch it later, and of course you could say, Anthony, don't go onto social media if you don't want to be spoiled. But like also like you know I get bored sometimes. I go to the bathroom. I want to check in on the internet. Pass some time, and I accept the risks, of course, and I try to do. I'm pretty good at avoiding things that have the Star Wars lens to it. I just don't really look at things. I just kind of like gaze from a 10-foot distance, if you will. But people, yeah, they were wild, and of course, I think there were a couple outlets too, like I don't know if it was Variety or some other publications, just really ran Fandom Wire or something like that, perhaps. They just went bonkers with the uh, telling of the of just full on putting a spoiler in the title and putting a picture of the character and all that stuff. And man, people just not cool hold back in regards to this one, and I'm thrilled about that to an extent. Like I'm just very happy to have Ahmad Best back in the role. So I knew he was uh, early that morning, right? I think like 10 a.m. or something. Yeah, I got spoiled to what was going to happen in the episode, but I wasn't entirely upset about it at all. But uh, you know, just a PSA: be nice when you're online and all that stuff, and just think about if you want to spoil it for anybody else. So moving on, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's up with the sect of Mandalorians and what's up with their training ways. I just have some questions there. They're shooting into water. They're being out in the open, knowing that these horrendous things can come and potentially try to eat them, right? There was the alligator monster type thing in episode 1. Now, of course, there's big dinosaur raptor birds that can eat them. What's the deal? Protect yourselves. Train in the cave or something like that. I mean, I get that it's probably some aspect of safety that they're doing here, which is why they feel comfortable with being out in the open. Because they're like, who would be dumb enough to do this? Um, but yeah, come on now. And of course, too, they're like, this obviously has happened before. Paz Vizsla's son, Ragnar, gets taken by that dinosaur raptor bird thing. And he says it always gets away. Like, their jetpacks don't make it this far enough to get to its lair. It always gets away. That Mrs. Forsko's conversations was right on the ball with this one. She literally blurted out in the middle of when we were watching the episode, like, "What are you guys doing? It indicates that you've done this before." Like, and you knew it wasn't going to work again. You knew their jetpacks were going to make it that far, yet you tried again. That's just literal insanity right there, folks. What are you doing? That's some of the sharpest tools in the shed, I guess. But oh my gosh, I mean, thank goodness for Bo-Katan just being like, I'm gonna hop in my ship and try and track it actually, and not act reactively right in the moment, to knowing in full well that nothing I can do is actually gonna save the day here. Oh my gosh, I'm like, what are they doing here? Come on, guys. And so that's all I gotta say on that one. I mean, we get a lot about Mandalorians in this episode aside from the Grogu of it all, right? It is called the Foundling, so a lot of it's about foundlings and all that stuff. I mean, that's a fair question too. Who really is the Foundling in this episode? Is it Ragnar? Is it Grogu that they're focusing on? I like that they're leaving things up to interpretation a little bit here as regards to who the episode is about. It's not like in season 2 where it was like the Jedi. Oh, obviously it's about Ahsoka or the Marshal, Cobb Vanth, definitely. But now it's about up to interpretation and learning more about the lore and the mythos of what it means to be a Mandalorian, which we get a lot of in this episode. we learn that you go from foundling to an apprentice. And that's frankly what Grogu must learn at some point, is the skills and the warrior aspects of Mandalorian culture. But Ragnar, Paz Vizsla's son, also gets a lot of lessons here too. An important lesson in humility as he fights against Grogu in this little challenge here with those darts. He learns being humble, respecting your opponents no matter what their size. Arrogance is a blinder, and he says one does not speak unless one knows, which not Ragnar does say that, but uh, Din Djarin says that, Paz Vizsla says that, and frankly, it's a great lesson. Much to learn we still have. So be quiet if you don't have an answer to something. Don't just be spouting stuff just to speak. I think that's a great lesson, again, because I learned in a book a long time ago from my AP government class I took in high school, which was something that has stuck with me for many reasons since. But the idea of it was don't speak unless you're improving the silence, right? Which frankly, if you're asking me, to improve the silences for learning, for knowledge, for questioning, and that's what is basically what it gets at the point here. One does not speak unless one knows, right? If you're speaking, it means you have something of value to give. You're learning, and that's why it's important to be quiet to receive that information. But I will say, Grogu did look a little wild with some darts on his arm there. They let's just say it didn't fill out the body as much, or look. It just seemed off a little bit, right? I mean, not against the show, not a nod against it. It's just funny seeing Grogu. Like he's like, I'm pretty peaceful. I just want to sit here looking at crabs and looking at rocks and looking at the water, and kind of chilling on my own here while everyone else is fighting. And now I'm forced to wear this thing and shoot darts against the kid here. Just fun stuff. I love Grogu. I love the character and what he's doing here. I did have a question though. Do you think that the Mando Mercs are involved with this series in a way? Like, do you think Favreau and Filoni called up a local Mando Mercs group and had them come on site? Because kind of similar to what they did for the 501st, right? When they needed more stormtroopers to fill out the end of season 1, they called them up and they got them on set to be participants in that. And to fill out the ranks of the Mandalorians that they have in this episode here, do you think they called up the Mando Mercs? Maybe they did. I hope they did. I think that'd be pretty cool to get some, positivity towards those creators and what they do here, and recognize the great work that they're doing. I mean, if you go to Celebration, which I hope some of you are that are listening to this podcast in early April in London, that you get to enjoy all the the cool cosplay characters that are going out and about. You'll see a lot of Mandalorians, you'll see a lot of variations of Mandalorian armor on site there, and I hope you get to watch them do like some of the cool rituals that they do on site. Like I got to be privy to some of that. It just like happens out of nowhere and just like you stumble upon it. And that's really one of the cool things about Celebration, is just the world just passes by and you just get to absorb it all. And if you see something cool, go walk up to it. Like time is your friend here in some degree. Like just enjoy it while you're having it there. So that's really some wise wisdom from me for those who are going to Celebration pretty soon here. The last things that I really wanted to get to in this episode is a little bit about Mandalorian culture beyond what we already talked about here. And we see Grogu getting the next aspect of his armor, which also doesn't really fit him well. He'll grow into it maybe one day. But it is this, what they call it, a roundel, which is like almost like a chest plate, if you will, for him. And the armor is talking about um, shaping steel and shaping ourselves. And basically, what that means to me is that they create their own destiny. They overcome challenges that are faced in front of them. They seek out challenges. They seek to better themselves. And the armor is there to protect them. It's there to give them the strength in order to overcome those challenges, if you will. And the armor is there to give them the safety net that they need to feel strong. And the fact that they are forging the armor themselves, they're molding it to themselves, they're making it their own. It gives them ownership over that, rather the other way around. They're not beholden to the armor. The armor is just another aspect and facet of them that gives them strength and protection rather than them being subservient to the armor, right? But, we push ourselves, we test our own limits. That's the only really way that you can see how far you're getting in the world, in the galaxy. Otherwise, if you don't test your limits, you don't push yourself to be beyond, you're never going to grow. You're going to stay stagnant. You're going to flounder. You're going to get complacent. And these are all things that can be detrimental. And of course, when all that is happening, that's when Grogu has the flashback there. So he must heal himself inwards, if you will. He must look inwards in order to uh, really move forward, right? That's the real test that he's pushing himself through there. He's facing that horrible memory that he had for himself and then realizing there was kindness in that. There was a person who was there at the end of the day. It was Keller and Beck, someone who helped get him to a safe point there. Although, yes, that was tragic. It was a horrible moment. There was some good out of it. He was saved. He's able to carry on that lineage in a way, the memories of the Jedi. He's able to also continue on with this Mandalorian culture and Creed 2 that he's learning too. All that is there on the table there. And I think that is great. Armor is a protector, but we must heal ourselves. This is the way. Lastly, I just wanted to talk a bit about the Mandalorian culture of the non-removal of your helmets. And Bo-Katan learns this where she can't take off her helmet to be around people to eat. She's like, "What do you do when you eat?" And of course, they're on for the context there, are on the path to hunt down where this dinosaur raptor bird is that took Ragnar, Paz Vizsla's son. So, and of course, they have to camp out for the night. They're by a fire, and they have some food rations, but each person goes off to eat in a separate direction so that they can take their helmet off without presenting it to somebody, which it's wild. I mean, that's gotta be interesting because there's gotta be some cold and loneliness to that aspect of if you ask me. There's something to be said about breaking bread, if you will, with other people. There's something communal about that experience to eat with other people, to share that memory. Food can be a linkage to that to create and foster community. But they're losing that because of the culture that they're existing in here. The aspects of Mandalorian culture that they're following. This group is at least the Children of the Watch. Um, yeah, that's fascinating. That's fascinating, and it doesn't seem like it works well for Bo-Katan, but she of course is keeping her head on straight here and not making the clan mad here, who will ostracize her when she definitely needs the support. And, the dinosaur raptor birds, I mean, I was a big fan of that. I'm a little sad that the mom had to die, and in such a gruesome way too. I mean, boy, wow, that was pretty metal here. And I was like, what are they gonna do with the foundlings? So of course they kill the mother and then like, or not the foundling, but like the young kids, right? That's what they were supposed to be feeding, right? This is kind of a circle of life here. A predator eats something and then feeds it, etc. Um, and I was a little bummed. I was like, man, they're gonna kill these kids. Like I have a soft spot for anything that looks like a dinosaur. I mean, it's one of my favorite things in the world is learning about dinosaurs, looking at fossils. I mean, you probably might have seen some of the Instagram stories when we were at the National History Museum here in DC, where I got to see a T-Rex for the first time in many years, and boy, did I absolutely have a great time and love that. Apologies there, folks, as I had to take a sip of water. It was getting a little dry in the throat there. Um, but yeah, I had a great time there. So I always have a soft spot. And I think Jurassic Park really forged that in my being too, growing up as a kid. So I was a little bummed. I was like, what are they going to do with these? Just going to let them hang out to dry here and die? But no, they they brought him back to the camp here as foundlings. I'm like, oh boy, what could go wrong here? Maybe they're going to learn to ride them. Maybe they're going to embrace them and then trying to indoctrinate them into the Mandalorian culture. I don't know, but man, that's going to be a wild ride for the armor. I think that's exactly how they phrased it too when they got off the ship there. They're like, oh, we brought a surprise for you, more foundlings. Oh boy. They got their hands tied and full with that one, that's for sure. And then of course the last thing is the lingering bit about the mythosaur. And I don't know what the deal is here, but it seemed to me like the Armor might have been gaslighting Bo-Katan a bit here. She's like, I think I saw one. I think I saw a mythosaur when she's reforging her shoulder plate. And the armor is kind of like when you walk the ways of the Mandalore, you see a lot of things, right? You can see a lot of things. A lot of things are possible through the ways of the Mandalore, if you will. And she just she's not necessarily saying that she saw what she saw or confirming what she saw, which I guess is the exact question I want to pose to all of you is like, did it happen? Is it real? Is that something that really did happen? I'm hopeful that it is. I mean, I think they kind of alluded to it in the last episode when they were like saying that you can get to the mines of Mandalore, and because of the purge, um, because of the bombings that the mines got deeper because of that, and that probably set loose the mythosaur itself. So I think that that's probably where that comes from here. Is perhaps it was always underneath the living waters and it just kind of got awakened because of that, kind of like a Godzilla story, if you will. But I think there's something to be said here about the mythosaur. I mean, it's clearly sticking with Bo-Katan after all this time. She's pondering about it. Maybe she's conjuring up a plan about it, how she can use it to her advantage, because no one else seems to really care or give it the light of day that she necessarily is. But of course, seeing is believing, and she has seen it in person. So perhaps this is her way to ruling Mandalore without the darksaber per se. So that's all I had for this week's episode. I think it was really great. I loved getting to see Kelleran back in the fold again. Ahmad Best, of course. May he always be in Star Wars. May he always be connected to the Star Wars family, and maybe find more ways to get him involved in the future. I will always take more Jar Jar Binks if they were so willing to give it to us. Come on, I'm all here for it at the end of the day. And the fact that he's so tied into Grogu now is just really special to me. And I think the fandom has really stepped up over the last couple of days and congratulating him, welcoming back into the fold, being very kind overall. I think it's just been really a good exploration of kindness amongst the fandom over these last couple of days here in regards to this activity here. But anyways, folks, that's all I had for this week's episode. What did you think of The Mandalorian Chapter 20, Foundling? It was directed by, of course, Grief Karga himself, Carl Weathers. So that's another fun tie into the Mandalorian universe. Let's chat about this episode on our social media channels now that we've had some time to dissect it and get used to it and appreciate all the goodness that it is. Hit us up on all the social media channels: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Hive. Be sure to connect with us on all those social media platforms for many reasons, not just to engage about Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Willow, but of course, Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner, and I've been teasing some great stuff that we're going to be doing over the course of that weekend. I will be off from work, so I'll be available all day, every day to do fun stuff on during that time. So honestly, let's have a blast talking about it, and let's get into the nitty gritty of it all because it's going to be such a great time to chat about Star Wars. So be on the lookout for more information on the social channels. So that's why I really suggest nodding and winking to following us on those platforms as much as you can so that you can stay up to date with all the cool stuff that we are planning. Also, again, we're on Patreon. If you want to support the podcast in other methods, such as getting more goodies from the pod for as little as $1 a month, you can get some access to some fun goodies, as well as for $5 a month, you can get access to a whole nother podcast of Force Ghost Conversations, where maybe we will talk about Jedi Temple Challenge on those episodes. I have a lot of ideas for what we can do with those fun episodes to get really outside the box from what we typically do on this show. So, yeah, be sure to support us at the $5 level if you want to get access to some of those upcoming episodes then. Also, if you feel so inclined, I know Star Wars Celebration is just around the corner, and if you want to get some expedited shipping on some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise, now is the time to do so. So head over to our TeePublic store. Of course, links are in the episode description here where you can get access to those sites. I know TeePublic runs sales here pretty frequently, so you can check out all the things that we have available on our store site if you want to showcase literally wear and support Force Ghost Conversations on the road. So with that, folks, that's all that I had for this week's episode. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk The Tipping Point, the brand new episode from the Bad Batch with Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations, Elise King. So get ready for that fun adventure, and may the Force be with you all. Take care.